of impact of the topic. So let me say, welcome to everyone. This is the January edition of What's Up in Global Law. We're honored to have two guests from Inclusive Surrogacy. So we'll start with introductions and then we'll go into what I believe is going to be a very enlightening topic. At least I will say it definitely was for me. So with that said, let's start by asking Diego Martinez of Inclusive Surrogacy to introduce himself and bring on his colleague.
Hi, so I'm Diego Martinez, the managing director for Inclusive Surrogacy. We're based here in San Antonio, Texas. We do the surrogacy process here in the United States. We help international couples meet their dream of creating a family and having a family here when everything was not possible. So I would like to introduce Alejandra Martinez. She's director of client development in Spain for Inclusive Service.
Hi, how are you? My name, as Diego says, thank you, Chris, is Alejandra. I have the pleasure to be part of Inclusive Surrogacy team. I'm in Spain and I manage all the clients that we have here in Spain. And well, I'm also a mother of two great kids, both 13 years old, via surrogacy. So I have the knowledge of the process and all the things that we need in the process to make it happen.
Well, Diego and Alejandra, thank you so much. And I wanted to give a shout out to our audience. I see, for example, our colleagues like Anita Vidal has joined us. And I'm Chris Bennett, I'm the host of What's Up in Global Law and the founder of a social impact law practice that focuses on intellectual property and started in 2016. And recently we raised a little seed capital and digitized what we learned from that law practice and spun it out as a social impact intellectual property legal tech venture called IP Rights for All that uses artificial intelligence, blockchain, and some other cool stuff to make intellectual property easier and less costly. Pivoting back, one of the things I love about the show is it prompts me to dig into topics that are very interesting and also they talk about the intersection of that particular issue, in this case, surrogacy in law. And on that point, I have to say, we're not doing legal advice today. What we're going to share is the expertise of our guests, best practices, observations, and experiences. And I think we have an ample group to do that. So that said, let's back up for a second. Surrogacy is occurring in a world. And as you know from our show's approach, we consult with a number of artificial intelligence large language models to kind of get the discussion started. So we asked one of them, OpenAI's ChatGPT, what are the most important things in the world today that set the context for this surrogacy conversation? And I will tell you that for the first time since we've been doing this show over a year, it didn't come back with something that directly involved the United States. The three topics were the European Union's designation of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as terrorists. Second was European Crisis Fund could be repurposed for defense purposes in an era of global uncertainty and some turmoil. And third, which I think really moves us toward our topic, global economic and market uncertainties cloud major emerging economy outlooks, and specifically in India. And so I guess you from an economic perspective, how do these type of things affect surrogacy from your experience, Diego and Alejandra? How does the economy affect what you're seeing in your market?
In that perspective, the economy hasn't affected us as much. We focus on more of a boutique agencies, so most of our parents they come through the clinics that they already been doing the process. So and also there's some banks that offer what is it loan money, lending options for parents that are looking to do this process. That's separate from our agency, which can be like Bank of America or other types of banks or other entities such as Bank of America. And also, I mean, the war hasn't affected us like as its economic as an economic impact that doesn't. I don't see any affected any doesn't affect us as much, I would say. So
Well, I think that obviously surrogacy is a process that involves a lot of professionals, that all this costs money, you know?
Mhm.
So, as Diego said, probably there are some families that ask for a loan, or that probably they have to ask some parts of their families to give some kind of money in order to have the start money to begin the process. But eventually, the economic situation around the world, it doesn't, we haven't not noticed that affect us.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And that's kind of puts us into our next topic of discussion. So as I mentioned, we tend to nerd out for a bit and we ask all these artificial intelligence tools to give us some ideas, and then we apply the human element because, fundamentally, while they're helpful and informative, we trust the person and trusted advisors like yourselves. So we ask three large language models, Claude by Anthropic, Perplexity, and Meta's Llama. What are the most important things in surrogacy that are occurring in the world today? And I found this very interesting, and I'm going to mention them briefly, but I also want to ask each of you to think about what you think is most important and respond to it to help our audience. Claude's concern was that they apparently have legislation in Italy that seeks to criminalize international surrogacy, and it's dated November 24. Argentina was concerned about surrogacy's role in human trafficking. And one of the larger issues from The Hague in Europe was just standardization so that people will have some understanding. Perplexity indicated that there's kind of a reshuffling amongst countries. So, Alejandro, your perspective from Spain, I think, will be very informative in addition to Diego's. Also, the technology apparently is starting to affect surrogacy on a cross-border basis. And there's a stronger emphasis on ethics, whether or not you're even eligible to participate, and if so, the diversity of the families. And then last but not least, Meta's three were global legalization and regulation, stricter controls on commercial surrogacy, and then cross-border surrogacy and related. So let me pause for a second. And as our guests, are there any of those topics that you think are important and would like to speak to those to raise awareness for our audience?
Well, here in Spain, the a lot of things have been changing. For example, I made the process with my husband almost for 15 years ago. Everything was more easier than what is now a day. Here in Spain, every time that we have a new government, they say that they will prohibit the surrogacy or all. We hear all that kind of things. But right now, the things have changed in terms that the IPs from Spain, what they need is a lawyer here in Spain when they come back with the baby, and they have to make some kind of they have to make some visits to a judge to certify the parentage of the baby. But it have changed a little bit, but always we have the protection of the law in the US that give the birth certificate, all the parentage paperwork, and what here we do is also with specific lawyers that know all the situation. What they did here, what they have to do here is to organize all that paperwork, and finally we have all the papers like the passport or the medical card and everything in order for the baby and the families and the IPs.
And from the
Thank you for
US
that.
perspective, also, here we follow a protocol. So basically, the surrogate is protected by the law here in the United States, as well as intended parents. So a surrogate has their own attorney that protects her rights, and the intended parents, they have their attorney that protects their rights as well. And then also the embryo that is created at the fertility clinics, it's also protected by both parties. So there's not genetically attachment to the embryos or the surrogate mother. So it's not her son. So also she goes through a psychological analysis test where
Yes.
there's a protocol that we follow. So we need to have a psychological analysis test to make sure that the surrogate is qualified. She doesn't need to be on any government benefits. Also, that's another requirement. She doesn't need to be on government benefits. She needs to be
with transportation.
Excuse me,
All right, money
Diego, one
enough
moment.
finish for Europe, so
Please, one of our audience members, I think you should be on mute. 'Cause we're getting a bit of your conversation. Thank you so much. But please continue, Diego.
Okay. So, and also the surrogates, they're also they need to be checked that they're not on government support, because also if they're on government support, they're disqualified from the program. So sometimes we get inquiries from surrogates. I would say we would get 100 inquiries, and only 2 would make the process. So we're very picky on how we choose our surrogates. Also, the intended parents, they go through a psychological analysis test. They go through a criminal background check as well to make sure that the parents are right they have the right they're good on their side. So
Yeah, I think that one important thing, as Diego said, is that each part of the process has a representation that always look for their rights, the IPs and the surrogate. But also the good thing here is that those two representative law firms, let's say that, they also look for the global rights of everyone. So we have never had any problems in terms of law, of contract. We always we work with excellent law firms in Texas, all around Texas, and we are very happy to work with them because we always so that they make the contract according both parties.
Okay. Wow.
and also in other countries, like let's say, because there's also been some cases in India that surrogacy does happen, and it's usually a nightmare because there's no laws that protect the surrogate or protect the parents. So basically, their laws are in limbo. So basically, there's no law that protects the parents. There's no laws protecting the embryo. There's no laws protecting the surrogate. But here in the U.S., everything needs to be for it needs to be under a protocol. It needs to be step by step by step by step. Unlike other countries that they don't have any regulations or there's no laws for surrogacy.
Okay. Well, that's very informative because that addresses some of the points that we found in our research for this show. And that actually also segues nicely into 2 things. One, that little avatar in the lower right-hand corner is for our AI that we built for our product called Operates for All. The relevance is not to surrogacy because our AI just looks at intellectual property rights. But we like to give her a little airtime on every show before we go into the core mission of our discussion. Tell us about your business and what you're doing and what our audience needs to know about it.
Well, we started first in Chicago, so we wanted to create the process to make it more affordable for parents because as we we're a very boutique agency also. We're very like family oriented. So also Ale was the inspiration to create inclusive surrogacy because as we're a family, we're also a family business. So we're a
Okay.
family business as well. So we're a small business as well. So we try to keep it more as a boutique agency. So we don't want to grow as much, and we want to keep it at a very standard level, so we can have that human touch with every single intended parent that we that we help. So,
Mhm.
but basically, Alejandra was our inspiration as a family. We are originally from Mexico City. My sister was, I mean, my sister can tell you more about her story. I mean, as a family, of course, it affected us. I mean, it was very emotional. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. And well, Ale would be, I mean, Ale, would you like to share your story? Because I mean, you were the inspiration to create our agency. So I mean, Ale.
Yes. Well, I'm from Mexico. I
Mhm.
come to Europe, to Spain, to study a master degree. And fortunately, I met my husband here, so I get married. And Carlos and me always want to build a family.
Mhm.
So obviously we try. I get pregnant, but well, finally I lose three babies, two of
Mhm.
them with 20 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
So obviously it was very, very difficult. So we start looking for different options.
Mhm.
In that time, I was like a little bit crazy because what I want is to become a mother. So I was looking everywhere to have a baby. And my
Okay.
husband, in that moment, he told me, Alejandra, I promise you that you will become a mother, but we have to make the things work.
Mhm.
So he told me, as as I have my family, Diego, my parents live in Chicago, he told me,
Mhm.
why don't we start looking in Chicago or in the United States to make this? And one of the most important things that Carlos wants to make in US, it was because the law,
Okay.
because everything, we know that everything was controlled, that everything was real, that let's say no one is going to have our baby and then in the delivery room they will she will say no, it's my baby, because that
Mhm.
was impossible. So we want to make sure that everything was real, that we will not have more problems that we already have. So that's why we want to make in the US, because as Diego said, it was surrogacy was in India and in Ukraine also,
Okay.
but they don't give the fiability to make the process secure.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
so that's why we decide to make the process in the US. We found a great law firm in Chicago. We our as I say to her, she's my angel on earth, because she's the one that gave me the possibility to have my two kids, Martina and Mauro.
Okay.
So I will always be grateful to her and to her family. But one of the best thing is that she was protected, we were protected, so everything goes smooth in the way it has to be.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Could you walk us through how did that process, how does it start? It starts with a, f- a couple or people who want to have a child, and or take us on the journey that you experienced or other families experienced when they
Well,
towards this
I would
time.
say it's a matching process. So let's say it's kind of like a dating type of process. So you match the ideal surrogate with the ideal intended parents. So we match them, and of course they have conversations with each other. Like, what do they expect from each other? I mean, some surrogates sometimes we always ask them this question: would you like to have an open relationship, like meaning, like would you like to have more understanding of what's going to happen to the baby after you give birth to the baby? Would you like to have like an open relationship and know about their birthday or anything? Some surrogates would say, no, I mean, I'll just give the baby and that's it, and that's it. They don't want any relationship. They don't want any contact. But throughout the process, we always encourage that to help that contact and that emotion, because it also helps the pregnancy situation. It also helps alleviate, because also like sometimes some intended parents send them flowers or invite them to Six Flags or send them little gifts because they want to know that they're doing well. They want to know that their baby is also doing really well. And sometimes they want to have an open relationship to know what happens after, when they go to college or when they graduate from high school or college, or what's going on in their lives. So that relationship, it's very beautiful. It's like what Ale has with her surrogate. I mean, I know Alejandra, she's still in contact with her surrogate. Sometimes they send pictures, they communicate with each other, they birthdays, everything. And then yeah, we're very open about that, which is also another thing. Like in other countries, like let's say India or other countries that were doing the surrogacy process, they didn't have that, because also it wasn't well managed. They didn't have any laws. Everything was in limbo and everything was chaotic. But here in the United States, we have laws that actually helps the surrogate mother and intended parents. So that's what makes it so this process extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and I'm curious, it sounds like your experience is that the law in the United States is the best foundation for these kind of relationships, the contractual relationships and others.
Definitely.
Are there other regions with which you've worked that you found to be at least reasonable to work with? Maybe not as good as the United States, but positive regions for surrogacy and the types of agreements that you're entering?
Like in other countries or another state?
Other outside the United States.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, we know some cases that have happening in Mexico or let's say in India and other places, but to be honest, we don't even go to that route, because to be honest, we go to the safest route, because with the United States, everything we need to follow protocol. It needs to be step by step. So for us, it's easier to help the parents that we want to help and help the surrogates that we want to help as well. So
Yes,
Okay.
because, for example, there are a lot of cases right now in Colombia, in Mexico, and in other places, in other countries. And probably a lot of them go smooth and everything is okay. But here, my point is, if you have if everything goes good or goes smoothly, it's okay. You can make it everywhere. But we never know if we will have a little problem during the process. What will happen if you do if you have a problem probably in Mexico or in India or in Colombia, and the law doesn't know exactly what to do, or is different. So here in the US, we are sure that everything will be doing good for both parties. So you buy uh, tranquilidad, Diego. You buy
you have peace of mind that the process it's smooth here in the United States.
exactly.
Mhm. So, and let me, Alejandro, thank you. Let me pull that thread a bit. So we have some folks who want to start a family. They want to pursue surrogacy. And Diego mentioned it, but I want to get more clarity. How do you actually match them with the surrogate mother? How are they sourced? What's that process like?
Okay. First of all, we have, let's say, let's put an specific example. We have some IPs. We require them to fill some questionnaires about what they are looking during the surrogacy process. As Diego
Okay.
says, one of the question is, you want an open relation or not? you want to be in the delivery room or not, and also with a surrogate. So
Okay.
so obviously some of the IPs want I want a candidate who is around this age. So what we try is to make the perfect match between based on that questionnaires. What we do is to look for the exact match for the intended parents and the candidates. So when we thought that we have that match, we send to the IPs the profile of the surrogate, and the same way we give the IP's profile to the surrogate. Once
Okay.
they studied, or not studied, but once they review the profile, both parties told us, yes, I want to meet her, yes, I want to meet the IPs. So we organized a call via Zoom or via whatever platform in order to they can know each other. This specific call is to put face, to both parties, and this Zoom call, as I call, is to for them in order to ask whatever they want to ask. You want me to be in the delivery room? Yes, no, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, we will never put someone who doesn't want to be in the delivery room with someone that they want to be in the delivery room. That will be chaotic.
Okay.
So after that call, we contact both parties, and we have a well, almost all my matches in that call are both parties says that they want to continue the process. And then, well, is when we start with the psychological things, with all the medical clearance, because we have to make a medical clearance in order to know that the surrogate, the candidate, is okay in terms to delay, o sea, to have develop the pregnancy. And well, then we start with the legal. Then when we have the medical clearance is when we start with all the legal part.
Okay.
So the IPs choose first the law firm that they want to be represented. And once we know the law firm that they choose, we send to the surrogate a list of law firms that we work with them,
Okay.
all with excellent results. So then they choose their law firm, and they will start working on the agreement. And once they have the final agreement, the law firm of the IPs send a legal clearance, a legal letter clearance to the clinic, because
Okay.
the important here thing is to understand that the beautiful of surrogacy is that all parts involved know each other. The
Okay.
clinic knows when they have the legal clearance. The law firm know when the surrogate get pregnant. During all the process, all the professionals that we are involved, we have communication during all the process. So that's the important thing of this, that everybody knows what is happening in each case. So that is very important to understand.
Well, thank you for that. So let's build on that for a moment. There's a matching process. The attorneys are involved. And it sounds like you're making sure that we're in compliance with whatever laws might apply to a country or region. So is there a contract that results? Is that the binding agreement between the surrogates and the families? There's a contract?
Yes, there is a contract between them with the surrogate. Also, it's the compensation package, also like what she's going to receive as well, and also the intended parents they need to agree upon it. Also, like incidentals, maternity clothes, pretty much everything is covered for the surrogate. The health insurance, uh, insurance, healthcare, life insurance, everything is covered from that agreement. So everything needs to be included into the contract for the surrogate. So basically, the surrogate will be covered as much as possible, and her family will be as covered as well throughout the process. So also like the incidentals, they cover maternity clothes, uh,
Life
visits to the
insurance,
doctor, life insurance, blood work, everything, meals as well. If she needs to travel, let's say if let's say if the clinic's located not in Texas, but it's located, let's say in New York, in not in New York,
Utah.
and in California, Utah, or Iowa, and other places, the intended parents will cover the flight for her to go there. They will cover the hotel, they will cover the meals, they will cover everything. So everything is covered for the surrogate. So everything is covered from that perspective. So and
Okay.
it's all in the agreement. So both parties agreed to pay and all that stuff. So
Well, let me ask you, how often or how long have you been doing this? How many years and how many relationships have you created that resulted in kids? And let me say this, the research we did showed this is a massive economic part of the community. It's like billions of dollars, and it's growing. So how often have you done it? And what are some lessons learned that you found?
we've done it for about 10 years.
Okay.
So, and I would say experience combined more than 10 years. So 20 years of experience and knowing the right doctors, knowing the right fertility clinics, because it's like Alejandra says, communication is important. Communication is key because we need to be in communication with the attorneys, the psychological, um, the doctor with the psychological analysis. We need to with all parties. So it's communication, all about communication.
Well, thank you for that. Um, I guess in one closing segment, what have been the most, I guess, challenging parts that you've encountered through this journey to what you're doing? And then what's the most joyful part of it?
Well, the most joyful definitely is when the eyepiece they have the baby in the
Mhm.
arms.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, that's the most joyful moment of all. And the other, the most challenging is probably to have the enough candidates to match our our IPs. I think that is the most challenging part of the process.
Yeah, that's very, very challenging because, like I also mentioned, we could get 100 inquiries in one day, and only one or two would make the process. I mean, it's it's very complicated, and also the process itself, it takes time, so it's a long process. Also, it can be it's a long, long process. So I mean, you start from the matching process, and then from the clinics, and then getting the medical records and making sure that she's medical qualified, and then we need to make sure that she passes the psychological analysis test. Then we need to make sure all these ups and downs. So it's a really long process. I would say that's the biggest like that's the most complicated part. It's a long, long process, but the most rewarding part is looking at their faces once they have the baby on their hands. And sometimes we go to the hospitals when they're receiving the baby, and we meet with the surrogate, and also we have a surrogate support program. The surrogates themselves within our company, also they have a surrogate support program where all the other surrogates they get together. So we take them out for lunch. We invite their families to Six Flags, or we take them out get to know each other, so that way they also have a support within themselves, so when they can talk with that's this is what I always tell the stories with it's your group, so you can talk bad about the doctor. If you don't like him, talk bad about the doctor, go ahead. If you're gonna have pizza night, all this, so they get together, so it's because it's their time, it's their, and also for them it's very rewarding because they're doing it actually out of their kindness of their heart, because some people think yes, the compensation is might be a thing, but it's actually they want to do this because they love the process. They love making making a miracle happen, because sometimes it takes a lot. I mean, there's other options out there. Yes, there's adoption, there's other kids that deserve a family, but sometimes it depends. I mean, it depends on the parents. So it's it's a very rewarding process. It's very
Yes.
beautiful, and also from our perspective, my sister. I mean, I know I love my niece and my nephew. I mean, for us, it's a very. I mean, it's very joyful for us. So we love doing this.
Yes. Yes, I think it's a very joyful moment, or all this process. Obviously, money is involved. We know, but when we saw the faces of the IPs when they have the baby
Mhm.
in their arms is beautiful, because you have to understand that a lot of couples have been through a lot of bad moments in order to have a baby. So it's very beautiful to help someone to have to build their families.
Wow. Thank you so much for that share. Well, so we're going to move forward in the agenda as we're starting to approach the time to wrap up, and we're going to next go to our hot mic segment. So let me ask our audience and also check the chat. Are there any thoughts or questions that anyone in the audience might have for Alejandra or Diego? And I see Anita, please ask your question. Come off mute if you like.
Hi. So I have a question, but first I want to say, Alejandra, buenas tardes, and
Hola.
buenas tardes a los dos.
Uh,
So my sister raises guide dog puppies for guide dogs for the blind, and she takes the puppies from 8 weeks until about 18 months. If they make it through the program, then they go back up for their graduate training, and they learn how to work on harness, and they get paired with their non-sighted partner. And she's been lucky enough that the people that got, the sight impaired people that got the puppies wanted to stay in touch because it's up to them. And through that, the first puppy that she raised that graduated, that woman up in Canada has become one of our closest family friends. And they've basically shared the last 30 years together because my sister raised the puppy that gave her mobility, and it was amazing. So I totally understand wanting to be in touch. Um, my question is, are you working strictly with gestational surrogacy? So, the viable embryo comes from the biological parents and is implanted, or are there circumstances where um, one or both of the parts of the zygote end up being from a donor, not necessarily even the surrogate who's carrying the baby? And I can only imagine the complexity of something like that.
Yeah, we only use gestational surrogacy, gestational, but also if there's a need for a donor, of course the fertility clinic will provide that as well. So if there's a need of for sperm donation or egg donation, they do provide it. So
Yes, but we never the surrogate never is gonna use one of their eggs.
yeah,
She only will be the carrier. She only will be the carrier, because I understand that probably your question is if if the baby is from a surrogate
Sure.
egg, it will be very difficult,
yeah,
because
Yeah.
in well, not in some way, in the real life is your kid. So no, we only the surrogates only help us during the 9 months. They take care of the baby during 9 months, but we use, as Diego says, clinics, fertility clinics. A lot of fertility clinics offers the egg and the sperm donation.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nita, thank you so much for that question. And Diego and Alejandra, thank you for that interaction response. As we move to close the show today, I just want to mention that for next month, we're going to have a publication palooza. We'll have a number of publishers from the Global Chamber community, as well as some other small publishers, especially in the education space and others. And they'll be talking about what they're doing and how it intersects with the law. So with that said, let's open it up for closing remarks from Diego and Alejandra. How would you like to close it? And let me seed it a little bit by saying, where do you see surrogacy going in this era of technological change?
Well, the advancements are moving surrogacy a lot. I mean, with also like you say with AI, sometimes when we're in communication with the clinics, we use a lot of AI in order to stay communicating with them about the process. So we do use AI a lot. So that also helps us a lot because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of we need to get a lot of medical process going on. So it's also it can be complicated, and also like you being an attorney as well, also like all that paperwork, it needs to be double checked, double verified. So also like with AI, it also helps us as a tool. So it also helps everything. So
Okay.
and also
I
the
think
advance.
that,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
sorry, I think that AI nowadays helps a lot, but we have to in certain situation we have to take care about what they what I give to us, because sometimes it is a lot of information. We are living a revolution of information with IA. So I think it's useful. We live nowadays with all this information, but also we have to take care about what information is the real, and what information we have to take care about that information.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for that. And so any closing remarks that you want to share with the audience before we adjourn for the day?
No, yes, thank you for having us. I mean, I really enjoyed this a lot.
Yes, thank you for having us. We hope that we help in some way with our apportations to the webinar. Thank you, Chris, very much for inviting us, and we hope to see you in another webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I will share that we had interest from a
Thank you,
number of
Chris.
different quadrants. So the Global Chamber will have the video and put it up on their YouTube. And then you'll get a link to it if you wanted to share it with those that you think may benefit.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you. Thank you. Everyone have a great weekend and stay warm if you're in a cold place.
Yes.
Feliz fin de
Okay.
semana.
Buen fin de semana. Bye. Thank
Feliz
you.
fin de
Love
semana.
y'all.
Chao.
Ciao. Bye.
Goodbye.
Conectamos en LinkedIn. Vale.
Sí. Chao.
Ok. Chévere. Bye.
Bye.